Hello everyone, I'm going to walk you through using the D20PRO 3.6.1 Shadowcasting system. Right now you can see I've got one of our stock maps that ships with the product, a small area with 4 rooms and a hallway and an outside zone. This is currently set up as a completed version of this map, so you can see that as I move this character around, lighting changes, moves around with the character, passes through doorways and things of that ilk. Over here as well. There are some things about this map that are not quite right, so we will adjust those and have a finished piece in just a few minutes. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and select all of the zones from this map and get rid of them. So we've got a stock map. And then I'm also going to go through and I'm going to right click on this character here who has a light source, go to his light menu, and clear all of his lights, so he has no lights. So it is a bright, open, unlit map. We're going to check out this guy here. He also has no lights, so we're in pretty good shape. And if you look at the light menu, it also is empty. This menu, the Game Tools menu, is accessible from the D20 icon. You click on that, go to Game Tools, it'll pull up the Game Tools menu. Now, if we turn on Grid, which is this button here at the top, you can see that this map lines up very nicely with our grid. This is a nice clean map, so it's going to be fairly easy for us to create a space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on Snap to Grid, and I'm in Draw mode, and I'm going to choose Mask. So I'm going to start by filling in the areas that our players can explore. So let's move this guy over here, get him sort of out of the way. So let's start out with this big hallway, and so I'm just clicking through and dropping points in. When I get to the last point, before connecting it, I can either just move up here easily and click to connect it, press the space bar, and that'll complete the connection. So now just go ahead and block those in on the rooms here as well. And some of these are going to be inverted, some of them will be normal. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's, while we've just, right now, all of these you can see in the Game Tools menu, you can see that they're of type mask, group drawn, and name region. We could go in and identify each of these sections and give it a name. So if I wanted to go in here and identify them, oops, let's hit enter on this, sorry about that. If I identify this region, you can see it's here. We'll call this room 1A. Grab this one, we'll call this room 2A, and A will be things on the right-hand side, B on the left, just for the sake of simplicity. And so then this is region or room 3A, and then we'll call this room 1B, and that leaves this main one, which is our hallway. All right, so in addition, you'll note that there are these little tick marks. Here, let's take this room. There are these little tick marks that point inwards, little white lines. These represent the normals, or the direction in which these objects interact with light. Masks are designed to block light from your players until such a point as the player and the GM allows light to enter. If your normals are pointed inwards, it works that way for things inside the zone and not outside. There are some use cases for this. We're not going to go too far into detail as to what those are right now, but suffice it to say that if your normals are pointed inward, then you need to invert them, and that is right there, or it's the U key. So if I have the thing selected and I press U, you can see it flips back and forth. So I'm just going to go through and identify my normals. So I click on the zones, and these ones are fine. So only the ones on this side. What we can learn from that is that when drawing, if you go counterclockwise in the order that you drop your points, your normals will be pointed outwards. If you draw clockwise, then the normals are pointed inwards. Just a quick way to get everything sorted out. So now we're going to draw our outside, and for the outside, we're going to use a wall. And so I'm back in draw mode, and I click on wall to set my set everything up to use that mode. I'm going to turn on my grid. And what I'm going to do is, starting right here, I'm going to trace the outside of this zone, of this building. When I get to this last point, I don't connect it. I want to come up to this corner and back around. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing in one polygon this entire space. And so what we'll do is we'll actually add one more point there. And now, if I switch over to Mold and press E or click on Edit, I can now take this point and drag it down. So what I've just done is I've just sealed this object, and it has a seam right here. And this allows for us to build this object out such that it's able to enclose an area. There is a limitation with our polygons. You can't put true donuts. You need to have a seam. And so this is exactly what we've just done. So now if we refresh, everything is black, except for this guy who's actually a token who the players own. So we'll move him over there. Very quickly, what's going on is that this guy, if we look at his ownership, he is not owned by anybody. And his visibility, if we go to alter visibility, is set to dynamic. So a dynamic creature that you don't own, or in this case the player doesn't own over on this side, you can't see in the dark. So if I set him to visible and I refresh, send this to the players, then these creatures will all become visible. So we can do the same thing here. And so now they're just brighter. All right, so let's move on. So we've got our wall on the outside. You can see the wall has an orange perimeter. The masks for the rooms, that's in blue. But this hallway, you know, they're exploring this hallway. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to visibility and turn that on. So it's on and technically visible in that if you had a light source, then it would cast light inside this hallway. So let's actually go here and add a light. So we click on this character, go to create light, and we'll create a 5-foot and a 10-foot. So just to go over that quickly, I'll delete that because I may have done that a little quickly. Sorry about that. So light, from the right-click menu, go to light, and then under create, we've created a quick list of valid lights that you can just add right away. You can also go in through the light panel in game tools and create lights of any size. A point of note is that the radius in the light panel is in grid units, meaning how many units of grid space will this occupy. So for instance, this could be 0.5, or it could be 6, or it could be anything along those lines. If we use the right-click menu, what we've done is created a quick presets list that matches the Wizards of the Coast, D&D 3.5, 4E, and Pathfinder system references, as well as 5E. So this encompasses pretty much everything from a candle to low light vision in a daylight spell. So you get, you know, pretty much everything you could look for. So with that in mind, we'll add this 5-foot by 5-foot and 10-foot. This is bright illumination and shadowy illumination. So you've got 5 feet around the creature that's bright, and then the shadowy illumination on the outside. So we push that, and now this player is able to, oops, change ownership. This creature is able to look around and see what's going on. So we've got a little bit of an artifact here, but we'll get rid of that in a second. So the next step in adding Fog of War to your map, Shadowcasting Fog of War specifically to your map, is to define your edges. So edges are really where we delineate differences between spaces. So right away, we've got these individual rooms, you know, 1A, 2A, 3A, so on and so forth. But there's nothing really to stop those rooms from becoming visible. Let me show you what that looks like and why this is important. So if we let's take our rogue and drag him down here. We're going to come in and we're going to give him, on the wrong side, the player cannot add lights, the GM has to do it. We're going to give him everything vision so he can see about as far as you can possibly go. So this is all a little wonky, right? So you can see that his vision actually allows him to see everything. And that's not at all what we want. So also, that's partly because the wall was set to the wrong inversion. So I just selected the wall, pressed U to switch its normals, and now we're in a much better space. But despite that, his, as he moves around, if we were to, for instance, go in and toggle the visibility on this room, what's going to happen is that he's going to see the whole room through the walls and everything. And that's not really what we want. So just to give you a clear sense, this creature with its huge vision can pretty much see everything, and its light passes through over to this side. So the second part of putting walls into your map is actually using our edge tool. And so selecting an edge and the draw mode, I'm going to start at this end, and I'm just going to walk around the area that I want to have stop light. And so what I'm doing is, for these walls, I'm actually moving in to the edge of the door, and then I'm skipping out and coming back to where I started. So I'm just basically just walking through the possible locations. And for this one, I'm going to go sideways. I'll explain in just a moment. And then this one, I'll go that way. Then once we get to the end, we don't seal it. If we seal it, then we create a polygon that's going to block everything. Now we just walk back around the perimeter. And we don't have to hit every point. To do that, we can skip some of those inner walls, and we get back to the end, and now that's all set. So if we now press E, which will go into edit mode, or we can go into mold and press E, I'm going to turn off snap to grid. We're going to go clean up this specific one, the one that I put my edge out there. So the reason I did that is just for simplicity. This grid unit right here would have been shared between these two pieces. So rather than have to figure out which one I'm pulling on, I just pushed it off to one side, so it reminded me to come in and fix it. I'm just dragging it into where I want it. So once I get that there, and we get out of this mode for Fog of War and hit refresh, you can see that the player now sees through doors, and as they move around, their light is occluded by doors. This creature at the top still has a light source. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. There you go. So that way you get a more accurate model of what this one light source is doing in the map here. So the next step is to add some doors, because we'd like to actually block line of sight and be able to stage, as a GM, stage what's going to happen in the room and have some nice interactions. So we're going to go back into draw mode, and I can either select door here and draw doors, again going counterclockwise to keep my normals facing the right way, or I can go to paint, and we have this horizontal edge and vertical edge. So these doors are actually very nicely placed. They're all vertical. So if I take V edge, these are going to be door objects by default. And so if I just come in and I drop one there, I drop one there, and I drop one over here, and I drop one over here, we end up with doors that are not quite where we want them. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to select them and fix them up. So let's take this guy. So I've selected him by clicking on him. Now I'm going to hit E to edit. I'm going to make it a little wider so it's easier to get to, and bring it over there. Then I'm going to go select this next one, bring its edge out some as well. Oh, turn off the snap to not. There we go. So now all the snapping is turned off, and I'm just moving these things by hand, pretty much as I see fit. And so doors are pretty cool, and I'll explain why I feel that way in a moment after I finish making these doors. Unlike the other object types, doors have a unique property. When you click on a door, oops, there we go. When you click on a door when you're in visibility mode, let's get out of edit. So I pressed E to get out of edit mode, and then I click on visibility. If I hide all these rooms and I hide these doors. Oops, let's just hide everything. All right, so everything is now hidden, meaning that it's in the hide state. So I could just go in and click on all this and either click hide, or I could just say hide all. So everything is currently in a hidden state. And now I'll toggle this hallway again. So now we've got closed doors, as you can see here. The door objects, if we look at them, let's just select one of these doors, one of these vertical edges. You can see that its normals are facing outward. If I invert the normals and hit refresh, you can see that this player now is able to see the art for the door, and it calls it out. So you can see sort of an edge being formed by where the light is being cast. This is pretty nice. This actually lets you go through, and if I take all four of these and I invert them, what you're going to end up with is the ability to see the actual doors from the artwork, and this gives the player a clue as to what's going on, along with any dialogue you offer. Now, if we choose one of our doors, and we'll take this first one at the top for room 1A, and we toggle its visibility, normally when you have polygons for Fog of War and D20PRO, clicking on a polygon will click through every polygon that's underneath it. Doors don't do that. If you click on a door, and it will only affect the door and not the objects underneath it. Oops. That is true just for the reveal. If you're clicking on it for the purpose of hiding it, then it'll hide everything as well. So this might be bugged, which is why I was just stumbling over that. So have to check that out. But the intent is that the door object should not allow you to should not hit objects underneath it. Clicking on a door, except for when you're hiding, should only toggle the object underneath it. So, and that does look like it's working. All right, so anyway, so I've opened this door, and at the same time I can open the room. And the reason to have this be independent is that this allows the GM to pace. So if the character opens the door, you can have the door trigger that first, followed by introducing whatever's in the room before revealing the contents of the room. This becomes very useful if you're using some of the advanced options we have for the judge. So if you look here on the judge screen, we have the ability to make Fog of War regions react to players and make Fog of War regions react to lights. So what happens if I have both regions and lights enabled, and this room is closed and the player moves, it will prompt to reveal all of the rooms that it is able to hit with its light source. In this case, it's all of them, and I can refuse that. So when we reveal the room and reveal the door, you get your Fog of War in there. That's great. Now, the next thing that we can do that's very fun is you can use edges as polygons. So let's go back to edge. And if I draw an edge, and I'm going to draw this clockwise, oops, let's draw that again. What's going to happen with a clockwise object is it's going to reveal the inside of it. So, but it still casts a shadow. So as this character moves around, you can see that the column down the middle of the room casts a shadow. And so I could go in and take this. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that object. I'm going to take the paint, grab a square, drop it in there, go to here, going to edit it, and drag it in. What I'm doing right now is I'm dragging by a line, which locks the 2 points on either end of the line, which makes for a better drag. And I'm going to invert that by pressing U, and then I'm going to duplicate it, which I can do by pressing D. To get this menu, by the way, all I did was right-click on a Fog of War zone. So now that I've duplicated it, I can drag this down, can grab another one, and grab another one. And so now we've got these columns. If we refresh and push that to the player, you can see that as the player moves around, we've got these columns, and that's pretty darn cool. So the next thing that's worth noting is that you can actually have inside and outside areas. So in the spirit of our pre-existing Fog of War, what we've done is we have added in the ability to toggle regions to be interactive or passive. Interactive is the shadowcasting enabled, so it interacts with light. Passive is that it ignores light. So if we turn the wall into a passive object, what happens is that light will now pass through and over, but it doesn't reveal content. It just will now paint the light according to its ability to be seen. Again, remember this creature has a very large light source. So let's actually take his light source and we're going to clear it. We're going to give him, I'll refresh that. We're going to give him a new light source. That's more, a little smaller just for the sake of having a more interesting demo. So now if we bring this character over here, let's go ahead and toss this guy over in this room. We'll put this guy over in this room. Let's alter their visibility to dynamic, and that. Then also alter their ownership, so they belong to me as the judge and not the player. So now those creatures are completely hidden. So now if we take this player character, the player character is able to explore. So we're out in this wall region. In passive mode, if I disable the wall, we actually are able to see underneath it. Oh, there's clearly a hole in my geometry here. Oh, sorry. So this is absolutely have to test, and this is something that I failed to do on my on this one. And this one needs, so this is walls. All right, so this guy is actually facing the wrong way. So I just inverted his normals. Now this is going to act a lot more like I was expecting. And so for exploring external, as I move around, you can see that as the character moves, the light actually updates. This building is occluded, and as I go searching and seeking, I find, oh hey, look, here's a stairwell down, and I'm able to enter it. And as I enter it, my light's now confined to the inside. The GM could, if they want to, then hide this region since I'm inside, and you don't know what's going on out there anymore. Alternately, you could leave that whole region to be interactive and turn it into a mask. And when I toggle it to be visible, it's going to turn gray. We're working on that. But the result is that exploration now will reveal in this region. So let's make this back into a wall. And there you go. So that is a very brief introduction. And here let's open this door and open that room. And you can see reveals a character. So we explore down to this next one. The GM reveals. What I just did is I clicked and dragged. So I clicked on the door and then dragged into the room to reveal both. And the player is able to discover both. Another neat thing that we can do is I can hide this room and refresh, and so the room's hidden. I can go to this star guy and there, and I can give him let's give him a 20-foot light source. So his light source will cast out into the hallway because there's nothing blocking it. I haven't closed that door. And so this is a neat thing that you can do. So if you've got, for instance, let's take him and put him up here. As this character wanders down the hallway, his light source will become visible to the player. We can actually come in and alter his visibility so he's invisible. And now the player won't see the source, but anywhere that they've explored will actually be visible. We need to turn that back into, there you go. So clearly there's some learning curve. There's a lot of options, a lot of different ways that this could be utilized, and it's going to take some experimenting and playing. We've done as much as we can to give you a whole slew of options on how you can interact, how you can manipulate objects, and how you can control visibility, invisibility, and generally interaction of lights. That being said, experimenting is going to be necessary to get the right balance between a realistic lighting experience and one that is comfortable for your game as well. And so I hope that this is a helpful demo on how to make lighting, and I will try to work on a couple more of these for you over the next few weeks as we continue doing more work. Thank you, everybody, and this is Owlbear from D20PRO, signing off.